Reading from Mavstar Observatory. Look at what's going on, guys, around the world. Do you have any confidence in the way in which your country's government is actually dealing with COVID-19 outbreak right now? Just to give you a few pointers on a few things. First of all, the British government have just decided not to do any further testing unless you actually arrive with the symptoms in hospital. It was never clear on quite a few things, where people should go if they believe they had the disease, where to get testing done. Because if you went onto the government's website, it was telling people not to go to hospital, not to go to the doctors, not to ring, the medical service hotline. I think it's 111, but, not to do any of these things. Some of the dead simplest basic things have not been done, and some people are completely unsure as to what temperature, is a fever. Because first of all, you've got to know what that is. I mean, it's very easy to Google that. I did myself. It's between or anything over 36, 37 degrees. You're likely to be running a temperature. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is because the government haven't even told people now. It could have been something simple as, look guys, if your temperature's over 36, 37 degrees, then it's likely you've got a temperature, and if you've got a cold or a cough with that, you could have the COVID-19 strain, and you might have to isolate yourself for a week. I'm not sure whether a week is enough to start with, but I am sure of this, is that, failing to test people, whether they've got it or not, is a real big mistake. And, especially if, these people don't know they've got it, how do they know whether to, isolate or not in the first place? It's just crazy. There's just, it's like the government have done absolutely nothing to this point, apart from moan that they haven't got enough ventilators. And that's the problem facing all of the hospitals around the world right now. There just isn't enough ventilators for the amount of people that are going to require them at some point. And not only is there not enough ventilators, there's not enough beds, there's not enough hospital staff. And, I just don't have any confidence in the way the government is dealing with it. I mean, they've got this herd programme in place right now. We're doing something completely different to the rest of the world. I think it might change after the next COBRA meeting today that the government have, but they're not even told people to self-isolate yet or stay away from large crowded areas. Whereas we've seen the rest of the world do these things. They should have been on the ball with regards to this and stopped the flights around the world as soon as we heard that China had got a major problem in Wuhan with this outbreak, which has now become a global pandemic and is set to kill literally millions of people around the world. I've heard some of the numbers that the government are talking about at the peak of this virus, that they're in the thousands, and they really need to get a grips, because in June, mid-June to the end of June this year, there is definitely going to be millions of people with this pandemic at the height of that peak in that period of time. And that peak could last for around 3 or 4 months. They're already talking about this, still being with us 12 months from now. But what they're trying to do is get the peak flattened down a little bit to, put a little less stress and strain on the NHS system here. On top of that, if you're keeping an eye on the stocks and shares markets, you'll see there's a lot of fluctuations. At the moment, the UK is 8% down on the FTSE, and a lot of other countries are showing around about that. So we are definitely working our way to what was predicted earlier on from the government, which would be, or should we say at least the Bank of England, when they said and came out and told the public that we could see half the world's wealth disappear. At the moment, businesses are being hit here in the UK, and dare say they have been all over the world as a result of this. And one of the businesses, to mention just one, is the airline companies are already saying that, through grounding of their aircraft, they may not recover from this. And Richard Branson has already come out and asked the British government for £7 billion to bolster up the airline industry in this country. But it's not going to do much for them, I don't think, because I think what we're looking at is very rapidly sliding into a global recession, and it will not mirror what we had in 2007, 2008. I think it's going to be a lot worse than that. And governments need to get a grip of this right now, to prevent small businesses going out bankrupt. I've heard people discussing sick pay. Some people aren't getting sick pay, but yet they've been told to put themselves up in isolation. So what they're doing, they're not going into isolation, they're going to work. And you probably have heard cases of this. So, again, this virus is getting spread. As to what the government have suggested the elderly people do in this country, over 70s, is wait a couple more weeks and they'll give them the go-ahead to, self-isolate. Let me tell you something, if you're over 70, maybe even if you're over 60, you want to do that right now. Because there is, as the government have already came out, despite there being a confirmed number of cases, over 1,000 now, I think we are about 1,300 and something. Very odd, because there was 1,400 the other day. Now it went down to 1,300, and I'm not sure why the government reduced the numbers on it, but it doesn't make any difference, because what the government said 2 days before that figure had arrived was that there could be 5,000 to 10,000 people in the UK with this already. I think at the saying of that, what the government should have said to the elderly people of this country is immediately put yourself in isolation and come up with, a contingency plan for how to do it properly. Because it's all right you're saying put yourself in isolation, and then the old dear gets a knock on the door and it's the postman. Can you sign for this? Well, there's a risk there, isn't there? Straight away. First of all, signing his glass that probably 100 people have already done in that day, and then the other risk is if he's coughed and he's angling your parcel or your letters, there's another risk. And it's right, I'm saying get Tesco's to deliver your food for you, but you've still got to open the door to receive that food, and you don't know who's been angling the food. So okay, they might say, well, just make sure you wash it. Well, if you've got like 30 items, what about telling the elderly people how to wash that and make sure that this has been so in a form of decontamination, so that they can eat that food without getting further risk. I can see us losing a lot of the elderly people within the next 12 months in this country, and we're going to see that is going to be the case for the world. I'm not too fussed at my age if I get it, because I'm not at the age of risk. I'm 46, so I'm not suffering with a weakened immune system or breathing problems or anything like that. So I'll probably get this, and it will be the same for me as well as a lot of other people, just a case of another cold. However, it won't be for the elderly people. I told my parents today, and I think that now they're starting to see it a little bit more on the news, of the amount of cases of people dying. We're at 35. I think it's a lot more than that, but that's what they're saying at the moment. I've told them to isolate themselves now because they're both in their 70s. And, I says if they need anything, just to give me a call. I'll leave it on the door for them, not the door and leave it. If they need to talk to me, they can talk to me over the phone, or on Skype or Facebook or WhatsApp. There's lots of other free alternative video messagings that you could do today, just to stay in touch. But the most important thing is that we look after this population of elderly people. Nobody wants to see any one of our parents or grandparents leave this earth at a shorter date than what they could have, if they hadn't have got themselves, COVID-19. So, there's that. So, like I say, I don't have a lot of confidence in the British government, what they've done using this herding strategy to, try and burn the problem out. It just doesn't happen like that, does it? And, of course, there are going to be a lot of people losing their jobs. And, this just poses, knock-on effects all the way along. We're seeing a lot of panic buying now in the shops, and I don't blame people doing that. There is people from the government saying, you don't have to stock up to the point where you've got months and months worth of food. Just get what you need, and but people aren't going to do that, are they? If they know that there's only a limited amount of food in the shops, then they're going to try and get it first. And we're seeing the shops emptying of pasta now, rice, flour, sugar, milk, bread, eggs. Everything is just going out the shops, and there is going to be at some point nothing left in the shops or even the storerooms that supply the shops. And at that point, what I'm worried about is social unrest. I wonder if the government, along with their trying to desperately obtain ventilators, have also put in orders for emergency foods and ration packs, similar to what they give the army over a week's period of rationed food in a box. I think that they need to increase their orders on those sorts of things as well, because we're going to start seeing people starve at a very short date. I believe we're probably about 3 weeks away from that. But the big problem is with when people start to get hungry, is social unrest can break out very quickly. I mean, I mentioned it in a video what was happening in Lithuania, and it's a very small country, about 3 million, and you'd already got people exploiting the COVID-19 disease in order to rob the elderly in their own homes. So you have to bear in mind. The other thing is, guys, there is a lot of elderly people in this country and around the world that don't have any family, and you might know one of these in your street. So just try and keep your eye on them, make sure they've got what they need if you can, and just be a bit thoughtful. If we all do a little extra or buy a little extra, just for that person, they'll appreciate it more than anything else. But just bear in mind when you do give it them, to observe a good safe distance away from them, because you might not know you've got it, especially if you're in the UK, because there's no testing going on. It's absolutely crazy. There's another meeting today in any case. Let's see what they come out with regards to that. But we're seeing some real big mistakes being made all around the world, like all those people that was rushing to get back to the United States because they was going to lock the country down from European travelling, and the UK now has been added to that list, and Ireland as well. But we saw them cramming people in at the airport because they simply weren't getting through the testing fast enough. It would have been a better idea to just allow them to go through without testing, and at a later date, if they want to get tested, let them do it that way. To cram them all in that room was just putting them at risk of catching COVID-19 much faster. And at the end of the day, I think we are going to see the world's governments having to pick up the book for a lot of these things. They are going to be liable for the decisions and lack of decisions that they've made already. And I think that there's some big compensation claims coming along for the government now and at a later date with regards to the loss of life and loved ones from a lot of people. They are not going to be able to avoid it. This is something they did during the outbreak of mad cow disease. They reimbursed or compensated a lot of people for their lack of actions. They're going to have to do the exact same thing here, and that is going to cost billions of pounds worldwide. You can all point your finger at Wuhan in China and say it was their fault because that's where it came from. But guys, the governments have a responsibility for your safety, and therefore, if they've put you in unnecessary arm's risk, then they are liable. And at the end of the day, we're going to start to see, when the dust settles, the government getting a slap left, right and centre over the way they've handled this crisis, because in my view, it's ridiculous what we're seeing at the moment. It's just absolutely too little and not fast enough. So they need to get their fingers out because at the end of the day, people's lives are at risk. So guys, over the next couple of days we'll be pulling the data out of the TriMag system. I think we've got our first set of data coming from Arizona, the first month's worth. So we'll be processing that. That's Scott who's looking after that for us, collecting the data there for us in Arizona. And we'll also be checking the magnetosphere, so we've got quite a bit to do, and we'll also be doing a CO2 reading and also a muon reading. So there's quite a lot coming up from the observatory, other than just covering what's going on or what's not really happening with the COVID virus. So guys, I will just mention the link down there. We've had a real miserable last 4 or 5 days with regards to funding at the observatory, and I do understand that there's a lot of people out there that are utilising their funds for other reasons in different manners, but at the end of the day we still need to be funded in order to do what we do here at the observatory. And it's not just talk, we actually build equipment and get it out there into the field, and of course we can't do any of that if our funds dry up. So just bear that in mind, guys. It is important to keep this little observatory going and doing what it does. So with that, I'll just say the link is down there. I will also mention there's been a few numbers of our patrons drop off. So we really need to increase and raise funds on both of those platforms, PayPal and Patreon. So the links are both down there anyhow, guys. I won't say any more other than what I usually do, and that is have a great day, look after your loved ones, and as always, bye for now.